Hey, welcome to the Pastors Podcast. This is a podcast for pastors by pastors, talking all things local church, building the local church. Richard, you're going to agree with me and be 100% on board with this, but I believe deeply that revival comes with the vehicle of the local church. So if we're going to change nations, cities, communities, we have to strengthen the local church all around the world. So it's great to have you with us. Before we go any further with, honestly, really excited today to jump in with a guest because he's a friend.
Let's go.
And we're going to have a good conversation. I've got some questions I want to ask you. We'll get to that. But first, I do want to let you know, every year we put on 2 conferences for pastors, church leaders, and their teams. And we'd love to have you come out and be a part of it. We do one in Sacramento every January, Pastors Conference in Sacramento. Then we do a Pastors Conference in May every year in London, in the UK, for all those across the UK and in Europe. I'm going to actually have you tell a story because you were just in London recently. Pretty wild what God's doing in England right now.
Yeah, wild.
Pretty profound. So we'd love to have you. Listen, grab your teams, show up either in January in Sacramento or May in London. Excited for what God's doing. Richard, great to have you on the podcast.
Let's go, the Banning.
Yeah, there we go. Richard Gordon, all the way from Redding, California, up there at Bethel Church, part of the senior leadership team. I'm going to have you tell a little bit of your story, but your title actually, do you actually tell people you're the CTO?
No, not usually.
Because that kind
They're
of...
usually like, what?
That's not even really what you're operating. That's not really fully what you're operating
Well,
in.
that's kind of what they pay me for.
That's what the paycheck is for. All of the ministry they get just for free. You just throw that in as a gift to the Lord. Hey, introduce yourself real quick as far as who you are, but also some of your story, your history, into leadership and into church world.
Yeah, great. Actually, you're a big part of my story of why we came here. I got saved in South Africa. I'm South African, accent. Durban, South Africa. Walked into a 104-year-old church with a big orange mohawk, and I was there to impress a girl because she asked me if I was Christian. I said, sure. And the next week I was like,
I'm whatever you want me to be, baby. Hey, were you, when you say big mohawk, were you like, was this a punk rock scene?
Yeah, 100% punk rock. 100%.
Yeah,
that was all
it'd
me.
Be epic.
Oh yeah. And so I get into this church and everyone's singing and something just kind of stirs inside of me. I think, oh, this whole thing must be real. And so I ditched the girl, not that she was interested, and I chased Jesus, and I fell in love with the man.
Do you have a church background?
No church background. My dad's got 6 degrees. My mom's got 4 degrees. My brother's got a few. My sister's got a few.
Wait, you don't have a church background. You come from an extremely highly educated family that would have been more in that intellectual realm. And so religion didn't...
No.
Would it have been as extreme as like religion is the opiate of the masses type intellectualism? Or was it just like, it just doesn't fit in our intellectual box?
Yeah, it would be kind of communicated to me that religion was hope for the hopeless.
Here we go.
Which is true.
Yeah, they're not wrong. Yeah, totally.
And then they stuck me leading something quite quickly, which I was like, why? I've never led anything in my life. And then I just, that's when leadership started for me. I got a home group of 20 people and I shrunk it to 3.
Yep.
And, but how we came to Bethel was I listened to a Jesus Culture album. And there was something on those Jesus Culture albums that like just felt illegal. There was so much intimacy and presence. So I remember friends of mine, we'd like literally, think we were going to get in trouble. It was just so like otherworldly, like what was resting on songs like You Won't Relent. And songs like that. It's like, and so.
Maybe one of my favorite moments ever actually was in that conference when they started singing that thing. Kim and Chris, it was just,
wild.
Yeah.
And so to be sitting here with you, I'm just like, what am I doing? This is so wild.
So you decide to go to, well, it's great to have you. And tell me, you went from South Africa, heard about Bethel.
Yeah, so heard about Bethel, miracles happening in our lives. My wife has a very unique gift. There's no one like her. She's like a Catherine Coleman. And I thought, where could I go to find someone that could train her, and that was Bethel. So
wow, how long ago?
13 years ago.
And you had no kids then?
No kids. So I was working as an engineer to put my wife through BSSM, and she came home crying every day. I thought to myself, maybe I should try it.
Oh, crying like in a good way.
In a good way.
Oh,
in a good way. Yeah. And
Engineering what?
computer electronic engineering.
Okay.
So, and then I went part-time corporate. I was working with YouTube and Google at the time, and I ended up doing school, and I came home crying. And so after 2 years, I quit my corporate career, and I took my salary from up here to down here.
Yeah, that's how it works.
And I took a pastor job, and I've been happy. I've been the happiest I've ever been.
When you look back at your Bethel, your school ministry days, what's the thing that stands out that was probably the most marking? When you say I came home crying every day, like what was the thing that was
I think
impacting you?
And if you're a pastor listening, I think we read in the scriptures about healthy leadership. We read in the scriptures about a God that heals, but it's different when it's embodied in a leader.
Yeah.
So a leader is in front of you, not nervous of your gift, not nervous of their reputation, but they care deeply about you. And I think I just hadn't been to a place. I'd read about all this stuff, but I don't know if I've ever been somewhere where they practiced it.
Yeah.
And so I remember coming home often and being like, babe, it's like we've read about this, but now we've seen it.
Yeah.
And it was in the faces of, these people had names. There wasn't just like a Bethel culture. It was the face of Dave Harvey. It was in the face of the friend that sat next to me. It was in the face of the Bill and Mark Brooks. So that was the thing that
people moved there. I mean, when Heaven Invades Earth, which is, when Bill wrote that book, which is really what put Bethel on the map, he writes that book and people read it and something went, I want to go somewhere where what I believe I can actually go experience in an actual culture.
Yeah, and the further behind the scene I got in leadership, and I was expecting, because sometimes the further behind the scene you start seeing like
absolutely, yeah.
And from my eyes, and I'm definitely a half glass full guy, but in my eyes, but I think Jesus.
We call that a realist.
I think Jesus is a full glass.
Yeah. Tell you.
So I'd say the further behind the scenes I got, the more surprised of how beautiful it was.
Yeah.
And so now I find myself right behind the scenes at a senior leadership level there, and I still think it's beautiful.
I want to talk about this a little bit because you said something in either in a sermon or with me one-on-one around you actually intentionally get to that childlike place. So I want to get there.
Yeah.
But that glass half empty thing at some level is that critical thinking that I have a question. Like you'll say, hey, whatever it might be. Somebody will say something. I'm like, I got a question.
Yeah.
I have a question underneath that question that I'd like to dig a little bit deeper, or I'm just looking at things critically. I'm not even saying from a critiquing way, from a critical way. My question would be, and I imagine you have that analytical, critical thinking. How have you, I guess the question would be, how have you not lost that but submitted it? You know what I'm saying? Like, is that something that you've just completely said? Because I know in your leadership, so I would know you not just as somebody who's on stage, but somebody who's actually leading the structure of something, which requires that type of thinking. How do you manage that critical, analytical, I have a question that leads to another question about that thing, and yet still stay in that place?
I think my observation of the charismatic church is that there's a phrase.
We're doing it across the board. There we go. Do it.
A letter to the charismatic. I'm just joking.
It is.
But is that they have this phrase which says, turn off your mind, engage your heart.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't think it's helpful all the time. Because what I've found is when I go minister at more evangelical or more conservative churches, a lot of the senior leaders are ex-CEOs, ex-CFOs, ex-business leaders with a very high IQ that have, in their latter part of their years, want to do philanthropy, and they see a great way of doing that is the church. And so a lot of these evangelical leaders are like, I'm around, I'm like, wow, these are brilliant, educated people. And then in the charismatic circles, I could be wrong.
No,
a lot of them, their boast or their shout, or it's a beautiful thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's like, It's one of the shouts that Jesus has over the church that God can use me so he can use you.
Yeah.
Chris's whole thing of like,
Yeah.
if God can use me, he can use you.
Yeah.
And
The
you have
mechanic.
these incredible, almost like not highly educated individuals leading massive movements. And this is just a theory. I could be totally wrong, but
I'll tell you if you are. Let me know.
there we go.
There we go.
Part of that expression of turn off your mind, engage your heart, actually comes from a bit of this is my story.
Yes.
And I think that we shouldn't turn off our minds.
Or coming from a spot that the mind wasn't the strongest part anyways.
Exactly.
So it's the way to just kind of go like, well, that's not really the strongest part of my life anyway. So
and I'm obviously trading on some little controversial waters, but I'm cool with that.
Or generalities as well.
Yeah.
But I get the point.
But I think we should not turn off our minds. I think we should put on the mind of Christ. And so what you find is there's a place for the intellectual. There's a place for somebody to be fully engaged as the problem solver, as the solutionary that sits in worship, and then their mind starts going bing, 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 bing. And for their heart to get excited.
How do you stay in that childlike place? Because I actually think, I have some theories on this as well around, I think that sometimes when that type A CEO leader loves to be in control.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying it's a negative. I'm saying they are in control. And they know that they're in the details, they're in control, they have a vision, they're moving forward. But to really allow the Spirit of God to move, you have to be okay not being in control.
Yeah.
So, but then the less type A individual that might be leading a church, it's more pastoral in nature, that's more relational, that's less task and more relational, is okay with kind of chaos, isn't necessarily worried if the sign's crooked. They somewhat are able to get into that realm of the Spirit, I think, quicker because they're just okay a little bit. They're okay with not being in control. Does that make sense? And then the stories you hear of like back in the day in the 50s, William Branham or the Kentucky revivals or these like backwoods, I'm not saying it's negative, kind of more uneducated groups, but seeing signs and wonders.
Yes.
And I mean seeing real breakthrough. But they can get there with that childlikeness. Yeah. So much easier it feels like. So does that make sense? I'm saying there's like, I'm either okay being not in control.
Yeah.
And with some chaos around me. And then also like I can get to that childlike thing because I haven't just spent my whole life. So people understand what I'm saying. They'll be able to filter through what we're talking about here. So my question is though, is how do you keep those things and keep that childlike thing, which is, I think, maybe one of the markers. I've been when I see you, I'm like, dude, the ability that you have to say, no, I actually come from a very highly educated background.
Yeah,
I actually am very highly educated. I actually am a critical, analytical thinker, and yet can go into that childlike, okay, not being in control realm.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Which I think some of the stories you hear in the back of the day, these uneducated guys that just saw signs and wonders.
Wow.
They just had faith for it. So does that make sense? What's your advice to pastors with that? Well, what's your advice to pastors?
I'd say a redeemed version of the person that wants to be in control. It's a person with these crazy strong convictions. Like, it's almost when you can say someone's stubborn or someone's stubborn.
Yeah, I'm not even...
It's a good thing, and it's
I'm not even saying they're control freaks.
Yeah.
I'm saying one of the reasons why we build stuff
So
and get there is because we
I
are in control of things.
I'm stubborn about anchoring myself in childlikeness. So I'm not saying control, I'm just saying I've got a strong conviction I won't let it go. If I'm with CEOs, if I'm at Twitter, Google, Microsoft, I was at 2 weeks ago, like, I can feel this, like, to I'm a copycat the people in front of me, hoping that I would get favor with man.
Or give them what you think they want.
Exactly. Yeah. But Jesus talks about the way to enter the kingdom is you've got to become like a child. So I believe that the childlike spirit is it's a way that breaks a spirit of comparison. So Matthew 18, you got the disciples comparing one another. Who's the best pastor, if you're listening?
Yeah.
Who's the best pastor in Sacramento? Who's the best pastor in London? And there's these disciples sitting with God in flesh, saying, who's going to be at your right hand? And the way that he breaks the spirit of comparison is between the two of them, he brings a child. And he says, you need to become like this. So partly, and then he says, you can't enter the kingdom unless you become like. So I'm like, okay, if I want to see kingdom reality break out in a place, I need to be stubborn about not childishness, but childlikeness. And if I want to break a spirit of competition, that maybe even in the congregation, who's the best Christian in the room? Who's going to get touched? Who's the best leader? If I want to break that, which I'm mostly with leaders, and I feel that, I'm just getting as childlike as I can. And so I'm making jokes. And all of this is actually intentional.
Yeah.
And my movements,
that's what surprised me.
Wow.
That's what surprised me.
All that is actually, I'm an intercessor releasing this childlike spirit that is breaking off this competitive comparison spirit that has plagued the church and has pitted brothers and sisters against each other, where a good father would never, ever set up his son and his other son, like, who's going to be the best. I mean, that's demonic. And we smell it. Like, we just go places and I think I would never do that to my kids. And I think he's a much better father than me. And the way that he breaks it is not by rebuking them. He doesn't sit down the disciples and say, stop competing with one another. You are, opening a door for the enemy. No, what he does is he brings a child.
Yeah.
And so instead of me, trying to address it, I'm addressing it the way Christ would address it. So I'm very intentional, I'm having a good time.
Yeah, that's amazing. Tell me about one of the markers of your ministry is unusual signs, I would say.
Wow.
And recently I saw the video. We share mutual friends in London and in England, and you were at Holy Trinity Brompton, which is such a phenomenal church and movement over there. But I saw the video of the oil.
Come on, let's go.
I saw it. It was wild.
Yeah.
Tell me.
I've got a couple people in the room right now that were in the meeting with me.
Tell me what happened.
So first you got to hear the story of how I got invited. So HTB,
you don't seem like a guy that's going to HTB.
Is honestly, that is one of the most historic, beautiful places in all of, for Christian history of revival sweeping through. So it's the place where Toronto gets entry into Europe. So Wimber goes there. There's a Pastor Sandy Miller, vicar, and he takes a risk and he welcomes Wimber in. Yeah. Healings, presence, they clear out the pews, and it hits like newspaper front. Like, what are they doing to this historic, beautiful church? Only for a brave vicar to make a way for the Holy Spirit. And then Ellie Mumford, the mom of the band Mumford and Sons, who grew up in HTB, flies across to Toronto in 94, where it broke out in the vineyard there. And then she flies back and speaks in 94, and the place gets like filled with the fire and the power of God. I've met people that were in the room at the stage, and they said people were just all flattened in this church, just under the power of God. And it marked a moment in history and the Spirit. So this is, and then out of that place, the Alpha course gets birthed. And I ran Alphas when I was younger, and I did the Holy Spirit weekend, all that type of stuff. And so then I get an email saying, hey, do you want to come speak at HTB and speak at the Alpha International Leaders Gathering? So I'm like, surely they've made a mistake. I don't know Nicky Gumbel. I don't know any of these guys. And so I said, well, yeah, I'd love to. Well, why don't we jump on a call? And I get on a call, and there's this lady, and she tells me the story. And she says that I came to Open Heavens last year. So this is, are we 2025? So 2024
Open Heavens is a conference at Bethel.
At Bethel, their flagship conference. And I was speaking, and what ended up happening is ran over time, and I told everyone to go to the lobby where the coffee shop is. So we had about 400 or 500 people stuffed into the coffee shop, and I just continued for another 2 to 3 hours. and power of God is just moving. People are, falling over, weeping, shaking. And she, I think I prayed for her, she just gets touched and she starts running on the spot. And she runs for 3 hours on the spot. And she looks at her watch and she has 14,000 steps. She falls asleep. She wakes up the next morning and she runs on the spot. So a sign and a wonder, but she said, I've never experienced the power of God like that. So she goes back to HDB. She tells the leadership, she tells the Alpha guys, and they say, well, you should invite him. That's when I jump on a call. So I realized they weren't just inviting me, they were inviting the Holy Spirit. Because she said to me, we want what happened to me to happen there. So I said, let's go. We get there. And I'm so nervous. I'm like, because I have such revere and an honor for this place. And,
of course, yeah.
And my Bill and Chris, and then we're like, what? You got invited? They were so surprised too.
Chris is like, are you sure that wasn't supposed to go to my email?
Yeah, exactly. And so we get there, and on the Sunday, the power of God comes. People getting radically touched. They said they hadn't had a Sunday like that in 10 years. And then the Monday comes, we're in the Brompton Road.
Was that a good or bad statement?
Good statement.
Okay.
Yeah, the vicars.
That was my sarcasm.
They were all like, wow. It was wild.
Yeah.
It was wild. And the Monday night comes and worship is just electric. The place is packed out. It's this historic building.
Yeah, their buildings are just better. Just
better.
Yeah,
just everything,
better.
Yeah. It's
God's
like
closer.
The same place that John Wimber came.
Yeah, it's amazing.
The same place Lonnie Frisbee was.
Yeah.
The same place that Toronto broke out. And then 5 minutes into the message, I start talking about unity. And into the message, I quote Psalm 133, unity is like the oil, the anointing oil that gives you access to the glory of God. So the high priest needed oil, and when he was anointed with oil, it gave him access to the glory. So my whole premise, I didn't get there, but my premise was that a lot of people think the anointing is for miracles, signs, wonders, and breakthrough, but the anointing is for intimacy or access. That's the first. But all I said was, unity is like the oil. And this man in the second row and his wife start shouting, he's got oil, he's got oil. And so I get distracted.
And he was not a young adult.
No, he was about 170.
Yeah.
He was an older gentleman.
He's listening right now. We didn't think you were 170, but I'm saying he wasn't a young adult. He was older.
No, he was an older guy.
Yeah.
He must have been in his 60s.
I'm saying this matters because as I was watching it, I'm like, oh, this isn't just like a young kid walking up there.
No.
Like this was an established, seasoned adult who was coming. Yeah, so keep going.
And so I look over, and I'm an engineer, so initially I'm like, is this sweat? I'm like, so when there's an extraordinary miracle, I'll often, say if it's a healing, I'll often ask for a family member to come and testify. And in this case, I said, let's get a bunch of people around, feel it, tell me this is not sweat, tell me if it's viscous. And so a bunch of people get around, it's like
you're challenging it, not challenging it, you're
testing it,
filtering it. Yeah, you're testing it.
Yeah, because if it's real, we need to put as big a spotlight.
Well, first let me just say this: if people haven't seen it, it was visible. It wasn't like, hey, just turn if you see the light just glisten off of it. Do you see that? It's glistening when you move and then you miss it if they move their hands.
It was dripping.
It was like extremely, I was shocked by it. When I saw it in the video, I'm like, that is...
So I'm shocked
either that
too.
guy went in the back and just poured stuff all over his hand, or... So when he came forward, you saw that and you were like, let's test that thing.
And then everyone's testing it. It's this viscous. And then we start smelling it, and it smells like frankincense and flowers. And I am just like, what? And then this guy puts his hand on someone near him, and they go flying out under the power of God. And he does it to another person. So inside of me, I was like, okay, God is doing power. So I just jump on a chair, and I said, okay, these three people, the power of God is on you. They fall out. And I'm this whole section, why don't you hold hands, stand, the whole section falls out. By the end of it, say 90% of the room is on the floor, weeping, shaking, people dropping to the ground, mid-service, slithering like snakes, and getting set free of demons. There were two specifically that I saw it happen like that. And then one person said 80% of the room got healed. I would say maybe 50%. It was mass healings that just happened all over. And I'm just weeping. I'm like, I can't believe this is happening in HT. And the Lord speaks to me and he says that he has oil for the church.
Yeah.
Not just for the new buildings or but for old wells of revival, old sanctuaries, old places. God is releasing fresh oil.
I have two questions for you off that. Do you think when people go like, well, why? Why oil on the hands? At some level, I'm like, well, I don't know. God can do whatever he wants to do. Like he doesn't answer to me about what he wants to do. He doesn't have to explain to me. But do you think that many times those things are actually just a prophetic sign from the Lord about what you're describing? Like the old, like it would have been the Old Testament would have been that. Hey, that's a prophetic. That thing right there that's happening. It's actually a prophetic word.
Point.
It's a point.
It's not. The goal is not the sun. The goal is to get to the destination the sun is pointing you to. So for me, the sun is unity. Is like the anointing oil. That there is going to be a wave of unity in the church.
Yep.
Partnerships, strategic partnerships that are going to start happening. That is going to give us greater access to the glory of God.
And the Lord
He is shouting it.
And the Lord confirmed that through a supernatural
100%.
sign. Yeah.
So it's not a good preach, it's an announcement.
Yeah, wow.
I always preach for 5 minutes. No, this is an announcement that he has unity for the bride. And then I've never had oil appear in my meetings. I have other quite radical manifestations that will happen from gold to...
I've been in meetings, man. I mean, sometimes people are like, I feel like some of the stuff's made up, or like, was it really? I was there when the gold cloud was in the room and gold dust. And I'm like, guys, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I was in a meeting in Santa Rosa. They were doing this 72 hours in a tent or whatever. Jason Upton's playing. And this girl came forward, and I mean, it looked like she had smeared her face in glue and dipped it in a bin of gold glitter. I mean, it was just covering her face. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I mean, I don't, and I'd say, well, perhaps she went down to the store and did this and got that and walked in. But I'm telling you, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this girl, and then she goes to a church that we're connected with, and for a year, she would just try to take showers to get it off her. She couldn't get it off her. She'd wake up in the morning. It would be all in her bed, in her socks. She didn't actually like it. She was like, but so people are like, I don't know. I think that somebody probably put that up in the vents, or I think this. And I'm like, all I could tell you is, I don't know what to tell you, but like, well, like, why would you do that? I don't know. But man, it was there.
But for me, like, it's been happening a few times since. So this was February when it happened, February 2025. And I think it's happened 5 times since in meetings. Recently I was...
The Lord's just continuing to make a point.
Shouting.
Yes.
It's time for unity, partnership. It is not good for man to be alone.
Wow.
Which was one of the first words said to Adam.
Yeah.
And we think that's just about marriage. But God was building a dwelling place. And he said, it is not good for man to be alone.
I want to ask you about this. I'm intrigued, and I love that you test it.
Yeah.
I've always had this thing. Like, so I was, I
was sniffing it.
Yeah, no, I love that about you. I started at Bethel when I was 19, was on staff for 18 years, and then have been deeply connected. So for 30 years, been deeply connected to the movement.
We're still waiting for you to come back. I text you every now and again. When I'm in a senior leadership meeting, I'm waiting for Banning to just walk in the door.
Tell me when Redding gets a better mall. But Dan Fairley, who's a really dear friend, he's on staff. We'd sit next to each other, and somebody would share testimony. And I'd be like, oh, I have a question. They would just say things like, and their blind eyes opened. And I just want to go, okay, what do you mean their blind eyes open? Like, how blind were they? Were they legally blind? Did they wear glasses? Could they not see at all? Like, were they blind from birth?
So you're the half glass empty guy.
No, I'm not. Yeah. Well, this is where I'm probably going to go. I'm just like, hey, and I think sometimes, because there is a critical spirit
Yeah.
There is a unbelieving thing that's like, unless you show me a doctor's report, I'll never believe. Like, there's that thing that I don't want us to get into.
Totally.
But there's also a little bit like, oh, if this is the Lord, it's the Lord, and we can go, let me actually see this.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, like, I guess what I'm asking is how do you walk? I'm intrigued. You're like, no, I actually want to see this.
Oh, 100%.
Like, so you're able to keep that thing that's not unbelief, it's not jadedness, it's not trying to prove that it didn't happen. It's like, I don't really believe this, prove it to me.
Yeah.
But there's also a thing that like, no, I actually want to be integrous in this, or I want to actually know what is it, like deaf ears open. Okay, well, tell me a little bit more about that. What do you mean when you say that? Or when somebody says something, what you're saying. I just love that. You're like, I have a family member come over.
Yeah.
Tell me about this
because
thing. Tell me about how you navigate that and how you would help pastors do that. Because I think some pastors are like, just, hey, whatever. And then others are just a little bit more too critical.
So the reason why I do it
Yeah.
is to give Jesus more glory. And I think that if something is of the Lord, the more spotlight I put on it, the more Jesus is going to be glorified. I do think when something is so incredible, it requires credibility. Otherwise, people will not believe the incredible statement. So, for example, when I tell the story about oil at HTB, most of the time I will have someone else that was in the room with me when the oil poured out come up. And there's people, we could even do it right now. There's a couple people here that were in the room. So you don't just hear it from my mouth saying, oh, there's that pastor, you know.
Yeah.
But like, and then you hear it from...
A little bit exaggerating,
Exactly.
little bit preacher flair. And you have no problem. You don't ever feel as you're testing it. It's a hard issue for you, I guess. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't ever feel like you're moving into like...
Critical.
Did that thing really happen?
I don't know.
You just do it naturally. It's amazing.
I kind of just do it naturally. I don't mind awkward moments too.
Yeah.
I enjoy a little bit of awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found some of the best glory moments happen when it's not perfect.
I remember when Bobby Connor was traveling with one of the pastors there in Europe, whatever, and Bobby would give a word, and then the pastor would full on be like, hey, you, come down here, please, sir, and would full on in front of everybody go, like, tell me what he said and whether or not, like, it was, and I just remember going, gosh, these guys are unafraid to do what you're talking about, to have that moment.
Oh, yeah.
To have that awkward moment, to actually just go, we want to know if what he just said was accurate or what.
I remember there was a girl.
And he wasn't doing it from a mean standpoint. It was the credibility. I love that thing. Like, oh, this is credible.
There was a girl, I was in Brazil ministering. There was a girl, she hadn't spoken before.
Yep.
And she hadn't heard. And she comes up and she speaks on the microphone. Place goes crazy. Incredible.
Yes.
So when there's something so incredible, you're probably having a whole bunch of people saying, no. So I want to bring more attention to Jesus. I'm going to bring some credibility to it. So on the mic, I said, okay.
Such a great concept.
I want their aunts or their uncles or their brothers or their sisters or their mothers. I want the whole family and the extended family to come up here, and I want you to testify if what we're seeing today is real. And the fam came all up, and one by one they started weeping, saying how they've never seen this girl speak.
Amazing.
Now, you can just imagine being in the room for that. How much more glory Jesus would have got. So that
It also, I think, is a faith builder.
Yeah.
I think people all of a sudden, like, something gets, like, that faith gets ignited.
You know, it's so funny. Dan Farrelly, he asked me these same things. He loves that I do this.
Because I'm not sure we've really helped leaders and pastors maybe equip them enough about how to do this.
Yeah.
But not be jaded, not be like, I'm trying to prove, like, but how do we actually, and I think it's a great concept you just said. Incredible things require credibility. And the way you're doing it, it just brings more glory to the Lord. I love that.
No.
Let me ask this. Pastors that, for the most part, anybody who's listening to these podcasts would have a theology of the supernatural, would desire God to move, the presence of God. What do you tell pastors who are like, I really want the supernatural, I just don't know if I want the weird stuff?
A great question. I don't chase the weird or the supernatural. I chase the presence of God, and then stuff starts happening, if I'm honest. And the scripture, I think it's 1 Corinthians 13, 20 or something, where it says that the kingdom of God is not of, but it's of power. And so I'm not chasing like, I want oil to happen tonight. It might happen tonight. You know?
Yeah.
I was just at a church, they've had 4 or 5 times this year, the smoke just come in the meeting in the back. And then in a certain pocket, it's always like vanilla, just this fragrance of vanilla pops. And they all came to me like, I think it's going to happen again tonight. And it didn't happen, but that wasn't the goal. So my goal is not for that. But when I chase the presence of God in its fullness, in its full, offensive, deep, raw nature, this stuff starts happening. And when you start reading, the book, it's like, it is weird.
Yeah, it's strange.
It is so weird.
It's offensive.
It is so offensive.
Yeah.
Like, they build a building, the tabernacle, the tent, and then suddenly as they put a sacrifice on fire,
Yeah.
and then a cloud comes. They do Solomon's tabernacle, and when it's finished and they put the sacrifice down, fire and a cloud that you can see. The glory of God is the manifest, like it's manifest on this earth, presence of Jesus. And I don't want to be, when Solomon's temple gets rebuilt, Zerubbabel rebuilds it, and they put the sacrifice on the rebuilt temple, and there's no fire, and there's no cloud. And it says the old men wept.
Yeah.
And the young men rejoiced, because the old men knew what was possible in the manifest presence of God. But the young men, they just hadn't seen anything before.
Yes.
So they were just happy with what they got. They got their temple back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to have a generation that settles for a level of glory.
Yeah.
So what you call weird, I call manifest glory of God. Like, man, Bill said this when everyone left. He preached, and one person fell down, and then he called everyone forward, and they all started falling, and people getting set free, and people getting healed, and the finances went.
I was there. Wild.
Just the finance, they couldn't pay salaries.
Yeah, they'd have to wait till a
IOUs.
Sunday. They'd have to wait till a Sunday to get an offering in order to, like if the payday was on Thursday, we'd have to wait till next Monday.
And I asked him this recently. I asked him, like, were you not nervous? Or he said, not one bit.
Yeah.
Were you not like troubled? He said, no. He said, imagine doing ministry for 15 years,
It was like
10 years.
It was like kid in a candy store, man.
And then suddenly in your meeting, not in someone else's meeting,
totally.
in your meeting, someone comes in that was born deaf.
Yeah.
And they start hearing.
Yeah, it's wild.
Someone that has a broken marriage. This is all he said. Walks in the room, falls to the ground, gets up repenting in love. And he said, I don't want to do ministry any other way.
Yeah.
And,
It's true. It's true.
I mean, Jesus gets born as a baby. I mean, he walks on water.
Yeah.
God enough to walk through walls, man enough to eat fish with them.
Yeah.
Like, he dies, the sky changes color, the rocks break. 3 days later, he gets raised up. Yeah. And there are these beings that look like lightning by the tomb. When he gets raised, he goes to Shion, I think it's called, and he takes all the saints that have been in that place of waiting, and he raises them with him. So you have all these
walking around.
Walking Dead are all there, and it's like, what is my uncle doing walking around? He was supposed to be dead. It's not just Jesus walking around for 40 days. There's all these other like dead people, and this is the faith that we have. And then we have that Jesus.
This is our history.
And he literally gets lifted up on a cloud and says, I'm going to come back on a cloud too. And he says, wait in this room. And he wait in this room, and then tongues of fire rest on people's heads. It's just, we have the wildest.
Speaking in different languages.
Weirdest.
We do.
And it's so crazy. This is the craziest thing to me. For 2,000 whatever years, people preach the gospel, and people sit in the crowd and they go, that makes sense. No, it doesn't. It's the craziest story ever. That there were these three beings, but they form one God. Well, hold on. Then are they different facets? No, they're three people, but they form one God. They created Eden, and then there was a snake tricked one of them, and then so they ate a fruit which made them sin, and then they got kicked out. So they decided to build this tent, and it got filled with fire and a cloud, and then they built a building, and it got filled with fire, and then there's these prophets that tell the future, but they do it in weird ways, and Jesus arrives on the scene, and he comes on a donkey, and it is the craziest story.
That's the faith we belong to.
It is, we belong to but it's what's wild is anyone will preach it, and people sitting back go, yep, I'm in. It's just the weirdest, wildest thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not embarrassed of the gospel. It says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God unto all who believe unto salvation. But a lot of people want to take the power out.
Yeah.
And they're embarrassed of God.
Yeah.
God's not embarrassed of himself.
Yeah. One of the things that we've found, and Bill's been honest about this at Bethel, is that there's a lot of flesh in the room. Even as God's moving, there's still flesh in the room.
Yeah.
And people operate in the flesh. And I've said this for a while. I remember a guy named Preston Sprinkle asked me to do a podcast just to kind of explain Bethel a little bit, like to really, because in order
you are kind of the expert.
Yeah, in order to understand.
That's why I'm waiting for you to walk back into our leadership meetings.
Again, let's get them all in some restaurants. In order to really understand Bethel, you would have to understand that it is an R&D environment. There's a ton of students who are just pressing in and leaning in and going after more of God and growing in the gifts and things like that. But also there is flesh happening, or I would say excess is, I'm trying to think if there's a biblical, there's that, how do you pastor as you're cultivating that environment of the supernatural, as you're cultivating that environment, let's go after the presence of God, the glory of God.
Yeah.
Because there are people, I just flat out, there are people, I've seen it with kids that will go down, in the power of God, but they're just kind of fitting in.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily they're going down to the power of God. They just want to fit in, or people that are just doing it. I'm saying that is in the midst of God really moving.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like that is in the midst of God really moving. Or maybe people that are, I have examples. I don't know if I want to pull them out on a podcast right now. I remember when I was, because I did school ministry. I ran second year for 4 years.
Yeah.
So we're pastoring all these students.
Best years of your life.
Yeah, best years of my life. But students were practicing walking through walls.
Stop, really?
And they were practicing walking on water. And there was also some other random things, they're like putting coins on walls or whatever. And I remember going, well, all right. I guess I like that you're trying to press in on the supernatural, but I don't, why are you there? Why just walk through the door, my man? I don't. So they were literally trying to walk through walls.
Did any of them achieve it?
No. And so I guess what I'm asking is, I do think that sometimes people, I'm hungry for this. I don't know what to do with that. And you do have to kind of have it, if you're really going to see this stuff, you do have to have an environment that's a little bit crazy, not just because God showed up and it's crazy, but there's a little bit of there's flesh in there and there's some excess in there. And Bill was never worried about it. He's like, sure, there's mess around here. And Bill's point would be, there's just as much flesh in a service that's quiet.
Yes.
So that's how Bill would say, there's just as much flesh in that church down the street that has no commotion at all.
Yeah.
But how would you say you pastor that with people?
Yeah.
When maybe they're like, okay, that's a little bit further. Honestly, there was things, I was not, now we're going into this thing. There would be people coming through. I have a grid for being drunk in the spirit, but then it was getting way into this, drugs analogy with that. And I'm like, whoa, that's weird, man.
Yeah.
That's weird. That is further than Scripture's going.
Yeah.
In my, when I read scripture and kind of where you're going, I guess what does that?
Yeah.
So my question is
that what you thought we may have disagreed on?
Well, I don't know. Not
I'm trying to work out what you thought when we would have disagreed
You're
on.
gonna be like, I practice going through walls all the time.
No.
I mean,
I've actually done it a couple
I
times.
just tried to walk on water the other day. They were putting coins in the wall, all this type of stuff. And so it's interesting because you're like, I don't want to shut down that heart to say, God, we want all that. I think we settle for less than what God offers. I think we settle for less than what the kingdom is.
No,
how do you pastor that?
Say,
or how do you not let that thing just become wildfire?
Everyone's crazy until a tumor falls off. Or everyone's crazy until the dead is raised. And so I didn't really get scared because, again, I'm not trying to protect my reputation, Bethel's reputation, BSSM's reputation, Jesus' reputation. What I care deeply about is the heart of the person. So like, is this a heart's cry for significance?
Yes.
Because in an environment like Bethel,
yes, that's a great way to put it.
These extraordinary expressions.
It's valued.
Because what you celebrate
yes.
creates value.
Yes.
And so, what you value, what you appreciate, appreciates. And so you sometimes will have someone that is personally is not they don't appreciate themselves. They've never felt appreciated. They get into an environment like Bethel.
Yes.
And they start pursuing what they think will give them
acceptance,
appreciation,
great
value.
Way to put it. Yes.
And often it's not black or white. It's gray.
It's layered.
So and we could go down the list of people we know, friends that we know that are catalytic gifts in the spirit. And often they come from deep brokenness.
Yes.
I remember, what's that famous talk show guy, the supernatural guy, what's his name?
Yes, Sid Roth.
Sid Roth said to a friend of mine, his dad was a famous minister that ended up passing. And Sid said to my friend, he said, your dad was one of the most extraordinary gifts I've ever met, but also broken deep down. And then Sid said, it's so interesting, but so many of the biggest gifts come from such deep brokenness.
I was amazed when I read about revivalists. When I wasn't in my early 20s, but as I got older and understood people a little better, I'd read these revivalists. I'm like, these guys were dysfunctional.
100%.
These were broken people.
Yeah. And if there's not a place for that person to chase God and find healing while chasing God,
yeah,
we'll miss out.
Is that
on the Ben Fitzgeralds?
Yeah, yeah.
And you were there when Ben was in the risings.
Yes.
Like, we'll miss out on the Chris Overstreets. We'll miss out on the Bannings.
Yeah. Where
I've heard the stories of you going toe-to-toe with people and you could have been labeled as divisive or whatever. Yeah, I've heard the stories of like...
It's a burden I bear that I'm always right. A lot of people, it's hard to bear.
But how do you create an environment that allows, like, that doesn't just squash someone? So that's probably what I felt when I was that broken kid that came to BSSM. And I'd read about it. I'd said it even when the disciples were comparing each other. Jesus didn't sit down and just cut them all up. He brought a child and he discipled them.
I love that.
And so how do you pastor that? I mean...
I think at some level you pastor it.
You pastor it.
You pastor it.
Otherwise, what ends up happening, you start putting policies in place to protect your reputation, and those policies end up becoming religion.
Yeah, I think few things shut down the supernatural more than policies. And maybe that's a whole other topic.
There was a church that I got invited to, and the story ends well, and I'll end with the story. But they asked me to introduce the church to the power of God, the Holy Spirit, and the miraculous. And I said, let's go. I'd love that. They said, can you come do it at our Christmas service? And it was 1 week before Christmas. So I said, that's an interesting place to reintroduce.
Yes.
So we jump on a call and they start telling me what they're dreaming of. And they say, I want you to introduce the church to the power of God, the miraculous. This will be one of their first exposures to it. I said, okay. And then they said, we're going to give you 10 minutes. I just started laughing. 10 minutes? And they were shocked. They were so shocked with me that I was laughing. And so they said, I asked them, could you go away and pray and ask God, if I could have more time? And they came back and they said I could have 20 minutes. And I know.
Radical.
But only to find out that they were so nervous of the move of the Spirit that their ministry times were only 5 minutes. So they thought they were being generous with me to give me 10. And then
bro, we
extra
doubled it,
generous.
Man. Quadrupled it.
Long story short, I get there and I do a meeting with all their ministry leads.
Yeah.
They start going down, touch for the first time. I never knew it was the first time they'd ever seen it. And then comes the Sunday, and I get my 20 minutes. I get up, and I share a couple of testimonies from the day before, and I say, if you want a touch from God or a miracle in your body, I want you to rush the front. They thought maybe 100 people would rush the front. They'd never done that ever before in their church, rush the front ministry. The room was filled with 1,700 people rushed the front. And miracle after miracle, and we were there for 3 hours. After miracle, and bodies, tumor dissolved. And so what would I say?
20 minutes, give or take 2.5 hours. Yeah. What would you say?
What would I say to the pastor? I would say preach the word and then create space for the Spirit.
Yeah, I love that.
Not 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Create space for the Spirit of God and don't put him in a box.
Yeah. Well, Richard, thanks for hanging out with us, man. So good to have you. Seriously.
One of my heroes. Love you.
Yeah, come on. And I'm excited that you're going to be hanging out with us as well at our conference. And so it's good to have you. Thanks for doing that. How do people find you? Just online?
Yeah,
Instagram?
Honestly, like Instagram, and I'm pretty open. I give my email out. It's richard.gordon@bethel.com. And then Instagram, I think it's at Richard Gordon.
They'll find it.
But I believe that we're called to minister to people and
I love it.
Connect. So
I love it.
I'd love email me.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us. So rich. And listen, we'd love to have you come hang. Come hang with us in Sacramento in January or in London in May. Either one, it's going to be phenomenal. So we'll see you there.